For 18 months, I watched my retirement savings vanish. $5,000 every month from my pension to my son for my granddaughter's elite private education. I skipped medications, canceled trips, and ate budget meals while believing I was securing Eliza's future. Then one rainy afternoon at Ridgeview Mall, I spotted my daughter-in-law showing off a brand new $4,000 YSL handbag to her friends, laughing about her personal ATM. Me. What I discovered next shattered my world and forced me to make the hardest decision of my life. My retirement fund was dwindling fast. $5,000 of my monthly $7,200 pension went straight to my son Calvin to secure my granddaughter Eliza's private education. But it wasn't until that rainy Tuesday at Ridgeview Mall when I spotted my daughter-in-law Renee showing off a brand new YSL handbag to her friends that I stumbled upon the heartbreaking truth. My hard-earned money had become nothing but shopping money for luxury items, while Eliza attended the local public school. The autumn rain tapped rhythmically against the bay windows of my living room, but no sound could drown out the hollow feeling in my chest. My name is Harriet Dawson, a 70-year-old retired hospital administrator from Providence. I spent 40 years managing budgets and staff schedules, ensuring everything ran smoothly even during the most chaotic emergencies. But nothing in my career prepared me for the calculated deception orchestrated by my own family. My husband Warren passed away 8 years ago, leaving me to navigate my golden years alone. Calvin is our only child, the bright-eyed boy we sacrificed everything for, who grew into a marketing executive with a beautiful family. He married Renee 12 years ago, and they blessed me with little Eliza, now 7 years old. The 3 generations of us have been sharing my brownstone in Fox Point, a house filled with memories that Warren and I purchased when we were newlyweds. 3 generations under one roof should feel warm and comforting, shouldn't it? But lately the walls seem to whisper secrets, and the floorboards creak with unspoken truths. After retirement, my pension afforded me a comfortable lifestyle in this expensive city. I could travel occasionally, donate to causes close to my heart, and save for whatever medical expenses might arise in my future. But seeing Calvin struggle with the cost of living these days, my heart couldn't bear it. Eliza deserves the best education possible, Calvin told me over dinner one evening last year. The Pennington Academy would open so many doors for her future, but the tuition... He trailed off, pushing his food around his plate. Renee nodded solemnly beside him, her eyes downcast. "We've looked at our finances from every angle," she added. "But with the mortgage and Calvin's company downsizing, we just can't make it work." I watched Eliza at the end of the table, carefully building a small tower with her peas. My granddaughter, bright, curious, with her grandfather's gentle eyes. In that moment, I made a decision that seemed so right. "I can help," I offered, my voice steady and sure. "Eliza's education is an investment in her future. Let me contribute." Initially, they protested, weakly, I now realize, but eventually accepted my offer with tears and hugs. I would provide $5,000 monthly for Eliza's education and related expenses. The Pennington Academy costs $30,000 annually, with the remainder covering books, uniforms, after-school programs, and a college fund. The arrangement began smoothly. Each month, I transferred the money to their account, and Renee would show me Eliza's school newsletters and art projects. Calvin would mention parent-teacher conferences and school events, always with that grateful smile. "Mom, we couldn't do this without you," he'd say, squeezing my hand across the dinner table. I felt fulfilled, like I was still needed, still vital to this family. When I saw other retirees looking lost and forgotten, I counted myself fortunate to have such purpose. My savings were shrinking faster than planned, but what better use for my money than investing in my granddaughter's future? If I noticed Calvin's new golf clubs or Renee's salon appointments becoming more frequent, I dismissed my concerns. They deserve small luxuries, I told myself. Raising a child and working full-time is stressful. Oh, how blind we become when we choose not to see. Looking back, the warning signs were everywhere, like autumn leaves scattered across my path that I simply stepped over. Renee's designer sunglasses appearing one month, Calvin's sudden interest in collecting expensive watches the next. Small luxuries that seemed innocent at the time now replay in my mind as evidence I chose to ignore. The distance between us grew subtly, like shadows lengthening as the sun sets. Renee was never outright disrespectful. Quite the opposite. She would serve me tea in my favorite cup, compliment my appearance, and thank me profusely for all you do for Eliza. But her eyes never quite matched her smile. They remained cool and calculating, like someone taking inventory. Our conversations never went deeper than weather and neighborhood gossip. When I mentioned feeling lonely sometimes, she'd briefly pat my hand and quickly change the subject to Eliza's latest accomplishment or Calvin's work stress. I was a bank account with a pulse, valued for what I provided, not who I was. The hydrangeas are blooming beautifully this year, I would say, hoping to connect over the garden we once enjoyed tending together. Lovely, Renee would respond, never looking up from her phone. By the way, Eliza needs a new tablet for school projects. The recommended one is $800. Without hesitation, I would reach for my checkbook. Of course, whatever she needs. Even Calvin, my once thoughtful son, began to drift away. Our Sunday morning coffee ritual, just the two of us discussing books and ideas while the house was still quiet, gradually disappeared. Too busy, he'd say, rushing out the door for networking golf games that somehow required a new $1,200 driver. When Eliza started bringing home artwork from her school, I noticed something odd. The worksheets had a logo for Cedar Grove Elementary, not Pennington Academy. When I asked about it, Renee quickly intercepted. Oh, they share resources between schools, she explained, whisking the papers away. Budget cuts everywhere these days. I nodded, accepting the explanation that now seems so obviously false. That Tuesday began like any other. Cloudy skies threatening rain, my arthritis reminding me of its presence. I decided to visit Ridgeview Mall to find a birthday gift for Eliza. 7 years old. How quickly time flies. I wanted something special, perhaps a collection of books from that series she loved. The mall bustled with midday shoppers as I wandered past storefronts, contemplating what might make Eliza's eyes light up. That's when I heard it. Renee's distinctive laugh cutting through the ambient noise. I turned toward the sound, expecting to see my daughter-in-law with Eliza in tow. Instead, I saw Renee seated at an upscale cafe with 3 women I'd never met, shopping bags piled around their table like trophies. In Renee's manicured hands was a distinctive black shopping bag with gold lettering, Saint Laurent, as she pulled out a gleaming black leather handbag. "Ladies, feast your eyes on my newest baby," she announced, holding it up for inspection. The YSL Lulu in medium, $4,000 of pure perfection. One friend whistled appreciatively. Calvin must have gotten that promotion after all. Renee's laugh turned smug. Please, Calvin couldn't afford this on his salary. No, this is courtesy of my personal ATM, Harriet. The blood in my veins turned to ice as she continued, unaware of my presence just 20 feet away. The old lady hands over $5,000 every month for Eliza's education at some fancy private school. She made air quotes, rolling her eyes. Meanwhile, Eliza's perfectly happy at the public school, and I get to treat myself to the finer things. She doesn't suspect anything? One friend asked, eyebrows raised. Harriet? God number, she's so desperate to feel needed that she'll believe anything. We've been milking her retirement for a year now. Calvin was nervous at first, but even he's enjoying the perks. You should see his new golf membership. My shopping bag slipped from my fingers, the soft thud drawing no attention amid the mall's noise. The ground beneath me seemed to shift and tilt as her words echoed in my head. Eliza wasn't at Pennington Academy. My $5,000 monthly contribution, my sacrifice, was funding Renee's luxury lifestyle. I don't remember leaving the mall. My mind was a tempest of disjointed thoughts and raw emotions as I somehow found my way home. Rain had started falling, matching the tears streaming down my face. By the time I reached my brownstone, I was soaked through, though the chill I felt came from somewhere much deeper than wet clothes. I locked myself in my bedroom, sinking onto the edge of my bed. The weight of betrayal pressed down on my chest until each breath became a conscious effort. My hands trembled as I pulled out boxes of financial records, bank statements, transfers, tax documents. $60,000 over the past year. $60,000 that should have secured Eliza's future, now transformed into luxury handbags, golf memberships, and God knows what else. My retirement fund diminished by nearly a third. How could I have been so blind? I whispered to the empty room. The photo of Warren on my nightstand seemed to look back with sad understanding. He had always been the cautious one, the one who questioned everything. Trust, but verify, he would say. I had trusted implicitly and verified nothing. My betrayal wasn't just financial. It was the callous way they had exploited my love for Eliza, my desire to remain relevant in their lives. The cruel manipulation cut deeper than any monetary loss. The ache of it was physical, a hollow pit in my stomach, a vice grip around my heart. Yet beneath the pain, something else stirred. A slow-burning ember of indignation, of righteous anger. I stood up, wiping away tears with the back of my hand. I would not collapse under this. I would not become the foolish, pitiful old woman Renee had described to her friends. I needed evidence, concrete, undeniable proof. I needed to understand the full scope of their deception. Most importantly, I needed to protect Eliza, who was an unwitting pawn in their scheme. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop and began researching Pennington Academy. A phone call would confirm whether Eliza had ever been enrolled there. Next, I would investigate Cedar Grove Elementary, discreetly asking about their tuition and fees. No more blind trust, no more assumptions. It was time for Harriet Dawson, hospital administrator for 4 decades, to conduct a thorough audit. I began gathering evidence methodically, just as I'd approached hospital audits during my career. First, I called Pennington Academy, posing as a prospective grandparent considering enrolling my grandchild. I believe my granddaughter's friend attends your school. Eliza Dawson? I'd love to know her experience, I said casually. I'm sorry, we don't have any student by that name currently enrolled, the administrator replied. My suspicions confirmed, I next called Cedar Grove Elementary. Yes, Eliza Dawson is one of our students, the friendly secretary confirmed. She's in Ms. Winter's 2nd grade class. And what are your annual fees? I asked. We're a public school, ma'am. There's no tuition. She paused. There are occasional field trip fees or supply costs, but those rarely exceed $200 per year. $200 versus $30,000. The magnitude of the deception took my breath away. I maintained my composure over the following days, observing Calvin and Renee with new eyes. Renee's closet, which I could glimpse when passing their bedroom, contained not just the YSL bag, but at least 3 other designer purses with tags I recognized from luxury magazines. Calvin's new golf clubs, Callaway Maverick Pro, I discovered after a quick internet search, retailed for over $3,000. The watch he now wore casually around the house was a Tag Heuer. Most revealing were the credit card statements I found while cleaning, left carelessly on Calvin's desk. Monthly charges to high-end restaurants I'd never heard them mention, weekend getaways to Newport when they told me they were visiting Renee's sick aunt, and spa treatments totaling thousands. One evening, I casually asked Eliza about school while Renee was in the shower. Do you like Cedar Grove Elementary, sweetheart? It's okay, she shrugged. I wish I could go to Thornfield Academy like my friend Lily. They have horseback riding lessons. Isn't Pennington Academy nice too? I probed gently. Eliza looked confused. What's Pennington? Just another school, I said, feeling my heart break all over again. Most disturbing of all was discovering Eliza needed glasses, something Renee had dismissed as just looking for attention, despite having $5,000 monthly that was supposedly for Eliza's needs. The evidence mounted, damning and irrefutable. Now I needed a plan. 2 weeks after my discovery at the mall, I sat at the dining room table reviewing my evidence one final time. Bank statements, photographs of luxury items, printouts of Eliza's actual school registration, all neatly organized in a folder. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 6. Calvin and Renee would be home soon. I'd chosen this moment carefully. Friday evening, no work tomorrow, no school events to rush off to. Eliza was at a sleepover with a friend, giving us privacy for what would undoubtedly be an uncomfortable conversation. The front door opened and I heard Renee's laugh, followed by the thud of Calvin's briefcase hitting the console table. "Something smells amazing," Calvin called out, walking into the dining room. His smile faltered when he saw my expression. "Mom? Everything okay?" I gestured to the chairs across from me. "We need to talk, both of you." Renee entered, immediately tensing at my tone. Her eyes darted to the folder on the table. "What's this about? We were going to order takeout tonight." "Sit down," I said, my voice calm but firm. Reluctantly, they took their seats, exchanging nervous glances. "For the past year," I began, "I've given you $5,000 every month for Eliza's education at Pennington Academy." I paused, watching their faces. "Except Eliza doesn't attend Pennington Academy. She never has." Calvin paled. Renee's expression hardened. "I spoke with both schools," I continued, opening the folder. "Eliza attends Cedar Grove Elementary, a public school with no tuition fees." I laid out the confirmation letters side by side. "Mom, we can explain," Calvin started. "Please do," I interrupted, sliding over the credit card statements. "Explain the spa weekends, the golf membership, and," I looked directly at Renee, "the YSL handbag you were so proudly showing off at Ridgeview Mall 2 weeks ago." Renee's eyes widened in recognition. "You were there," she whispered. "I heard everything," I confirmed, the memory still raw. "Your personal ATM. Your mockery of my desire to help my granddaughter." Calvin appeared genuinely shocked, staring at his wife. "You said that?" Renee quickly recovered, her shock transforming into defiance. "You don't understand how hard it is to maintain appearances in this neighborhood," she snapped. "Eliza's fine at public school. The money was just sitting in your account anyway." The callousness of her response left me momentarily speechless. "Just sitting in my account?" I repeated, finding my voice again. "That money represents years of hard work, savings for my healthcare needs, for emergencies, for Eliza's actual future." Calvin's face crumpled with shame. "Mom, I didn't know she said those things. I thought we were just borrowing until my promotion came through." His weak justification hung in the air, pathetic and hollow. "Borrowing?" I shook my head in disbelief. "Did you plan to pay back the $60,000 you've taken from me over the past year?" His silence was answer enough. Renee, on the other hand, was not cowed. She stood abruptly, chair scraping against hardwood. "This is our house too. We've been taking care of you, letting you live here." "This is my house," I interrupted firmly. "My name is on the deed. I've paid the property taxes for 40 years. You live here because I allowed it." "We're family," Calvin pleaded. "Can't we work this out? I'll make it right, I promise." "Family doesn't exploit each other," I countered. "Family doesn't lie continuously for a year, stealing from a widow's retirement to fund a luxury lifestyle." "What do you want from us?" Renee demanded, crossing her arms defensively. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "As of today, the monthly payments stop completely. I want an accounting of every dollar I've given you, and a repayment plan for the money that wasn't used for Eliza's legitimate expenses." Calvin nodded frantically. Of course we can figure something out. I'm not finished, I continued. I'm scheduling an eye exam for Eliza next week, since she apparently needs glasses that you've neglected to provide, despite having ample funds. She's exaggerating her vision problems, Renee dismissed with a wave. The school nurse said it's minor. I pulled out another document from my folder, an email from Eliza's teacher expressing concern about her squinting to see the board. Minor enough that her teacher noticed. Renee's face flushed with anger. You're going behind our backs checking on our parenting. I'm ensuring my granddaughter's well-being, I corrected. Something you two have failed to prioritize despite having $5,000 extra each month. Calvin buried his face in his hands. Renee stared at me with undisguised hostility. You'll regret this, she hissed, grabbing her purse, the YSL bag I noticed with bitter irony. You're nothing without us, just a lonely old woman. She stormed out, the front door slamming behind her. Calvin remained, shoulders hunched in defeat. The next morning, I woke to a house filled with tense silence. Calvin had spent the night on the couch while Renee had returned late, refusing to speak to either of us. When Eliza came home from her sleepover, the artificial normalcy they maintained in her presence was almost painful to watch. But beneath the surface, war had been declared. Over the following days, Renee's retaliation manifested in 1,000 small cruelties. The thermostat was adjusted to uncomfortably cold when I was home alone. My mail mysteriously disappeared before I could read it. The Wi-Fi password changed without anyone informing me. Just technical issues, Calvin would explain weakly when I asked. He had become a shadow of himself, caught between his wife's vindictiveness and his own guilt. The kitchen became a battleground. If I cooked, Renee would accidentally knock my plate to the floor. If I bought groceries, they would mysteriously spoil overnight. When I made tea, the sugar was replaced with salt. Childish tactics, but wearing nonetheless. The psychological warfare escalated when Renee began inviting her mother Corinne over constantly. Corinne, a woman cut from the same cloth as her daughter, took great pleasure in speaking about me as if I weren't present. The elderly can become so paranoid, she would say loudly while we all sat in the living room. My friend's mother started accusing family members of stealing from her. Turned out to be early dementia. Renee would nod sympathetically. How sad. I've noticed some concerning behaviors myself recently. The implication was clear. They were building a narrative of mental decline to discredit me if I spoke out. Most painful was how they began restricting my time with Eliza. Grandma's not feeling well, they would tell her when she asked to read with me. She needs her rest. Eliza's confused, hurt expression when they pulled her away from my door broke my heart. One evening, I overheard Renee on the phone with a lawyer, inquiring about options for removing an elderly parent from a shared home. She claimed I had become erratic and paranoid, potentially a danger to our child. I realized then that this wasn't merely retaliation, it was elimination. They wanted me gone, but the house firmly in their possession. That night, I called my old friend Maxine, a retired attorney. I need help, I admitted, and I need it quickly. Document everything, Maxine advised over coffee at her apartment the next day. Her living room, filled with law books and framed photographs of her grandchildren, felt like a sanctuary after weeks in my increasingly hostile home. They're creating a narrative about your mental state to justify taking control of your assets, she explained, her decades of legal experience evident in her sharp assessment. We need to counter with overwhelming evidence of their financial exploitation. I nodded, grateful for her clarity. I've saved all the transfer records and have proof Eliza never attended Pennington. Good start, Maxine said, but we need more. Medical records showing you're cognitively sound. Witnesses who can testify to your lucidity and their pattern of behavior. Over the following week, I quietly implemented Maxine's strategy. I scheduled a comprehensive cognitive assessment with a respected neurologist, who documented that I was fully competent with excellent cognitive function for any age. I installed a small security camera in my bedroom after Renee accidentally entered twice in the middle of the night, claiming she heard noises. The footage showed her rifling through my financial documents when she thought I was asleep. I reconnected with neighbors and former colleagues, carefully documenting their observations of my mental clarity, as well as Calvin and Renee's increasingly erratic behavior. Most importantly, I met with Eliza's teacher, Ms. Winters, who expressed concern about Eliza's untreated vision issues and the designer clothes she wore while lacking basic school supplies. She mentioned once that her parents have lots of money for shopping, but not for boring things like books, Ms. Winters told me, her brow furrowed with concern. I took Eliza for the eye exam without telling Calvin or Renee, obtaining a prescription showing she needed glasses immediately. The optometrist was troubled by the delay in treatment. Her right eye has been compensating for the left. If left untreated much longer, it could have led to permanent vision problems, he explained. Meanwhile, Maxine helped me prepare legal documents. A revocation of any powers of attorney Calvin might claim, a new will with Maxine as executor, and, most critically, an eviction notice. "Are you sure about this?" Maxine asked gently. I thought of Eliza's needs being neglected while Renee carried a bag worth thousands. "Absolutely," I replied. The time for half measures had passed. Eliza's 8th birthday provided the perfect opportunity. Renee had planned an extravagant party at an expensive venue, no doubt expecting me to contribute to the cost. Instead, I suggested hosting a small family gathering at home first, just for the immediate family to celebrate together. Surprisingly, she agreed, likely seeing it as another chance to showcase their facade of perfect family harmony to Corinne and her brother, who would be attending. The morning of Eliza's birthday, I arranged for Maxine to arrive as a surprise guest with her husband, a retired judge. I also invited Ms. Winters, Eliza's teacher, who brought a thoughtful gift of books. Renee's smile froze when she saw the unexpected guests. "Mom, you should have told me we were having company," she hissed, while maintaining her perfect hostess smile. "I thought more people to celebrate Eliza would be welcome," I replied innocently. The first part of the afternoon proceeded with strained politeness. Eliza, delighted with her new glasses, which I had secretly purchased, proudly showed her teacher how much better she could see the decorations. After cake, when Eliza was occupied with her presents, I cleared my throat to make an announcement. "I have a special gift for Eliza," I said, drawing everyone's attention. "I've established a trust fund for her education, her actual education. The trust will cover her schooling through college, but will only be accessible for verified educational expenses." Calvin's eyes widened. Renee's smile tightened. "That's very generous, Harriet," Corinne said with artificial sweetness. "But Calvin and Renee are perfectly capable of handling Eliza's education." "Are they?" I asked, my voice steady. "Because for the past year, they've taken $60,000 from me under the pretense of sending Eliza to Pennington Academy." I turned to Ms. Winters. "Would you mind telling everyone which school Eliza actually attends?" Ms. Winters, understanding her role, spoke clearly. "Eliza is a student at Cedar Grove Elementary, our local public school. She's a wonderful student, though we've been concerned about her untreated vision problems until very recently." The room fell silent. Eliza, oblivious to the tension, continued examining her presents. "I don't understand," Corinne said slowly, looking between her daughter and me. "Let me clarify," I replied, opening a folder containing bank statements, luxury purchase receipts, and photographs. This is where the money went instead. As realization dawned on everyone's faces, Renee's mask of composure finally shattered. "You ungrateful witch!" Renee shrieked, lunging toward me. "After everything we've done for you!" Judge Hargrove, Maxine's husband, stepped between us. "I wouldn't," he advised calmly. "Assault charges wouldn't help your situation." Renee froze, suddenly aware of the witnesses surrounding her. "This is a family misunderstanding," Calvin attempted weakly. "Mom's confused about our arrangement." "Arrangement?" I echoed. Was the arrangement for me to fund designer handbags while Eliza's vision deteriorated? Was that our understanding, Calvin? Even Corinne looked horrified, especially when I showed the medical report detailing how Eliza's untreated eye condition could have caused permanent damage. "Renee," she whispered, "tell me you didn't know about her eyes." Renee's silence spoke volumes. I handed Calvin an envelope. "This is an eviction notice. You have 30 days to find alternative accommodation." "You can't throw us out," Renee gasped. "This is our home." "It's my home," I corrected gently. "And Eliza is welcome to stay with me while you organize your new living arrangements." The aftermath was painful but necessary. Calvin, finally confronting the magnitude of their deception, filed for divorce 2 weeks later. The evidence of financial exploitation was so overwhelming that Renee didn't contest the eviction, though she left with every luxury item she had purchased. Eliza stayed with me while Calvin secured an apartment nearby. Together, we established a new routine, one built on honesty and genuine care. I enrolled her in Thornfield Academy, the school her friend attended, using the education trust I had established. "Grandma," she asked one evening as I tucked her into bed, "are you sad that Mom and Dad aren't living here anymore?" "I'm sad about many things, sweetheart," I answered truthfully. "But I'm happy that you're getting what you need now." 6 months later, Calvin has begun repaying what they took, working extra hours and selling the luxury items he'd acquired. Renee, I hear, has moved to Chicago with a new boyfriend. Corinne calls occasionally, apologizing for not seeing what was happening. The brownstone feels different now, peaceful, honest. I've converted one bedroom into an art studio where I paint with Eliza on weekends. My pension fund is slowly recovering, and more importantly, so is my relationship with my son. Sometimes starting over is the bravest thing we can do. At 70, I never expected to rebuild my life, but here I am, proving that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and for those who truly deserve your protection.